They were more than actresses. They were the faces that defined an era, the voices that filled the world with grace, passion, and light. But time took them too soon. Yet, what if time could give them back? What if, for just a moment, we could see them again? Not as ghosts of the past, but as living, breathing souls in the world we know today. Imagine Audrey walking the streets of Paris with a camera in her hand, or Marilyn laughing under a California sunset, or Aaliyah standing on stage again, voice rising like a dream reborn. This isn't just a story of what was lost. It's a vision of what could have been. Because through AI, through imagination, we can reawaken the legacy they left behind. Not to replace their truth, but to honor it, to celebrate it, to keep it alive. This is what it might look like if these 5 Hollywood icons were still alive today. Before she was an icon, Audrey Hepburn was a girl who survived war, hunger, and silence. She was born in Brussels, raised in the Netherlands, and during World War II, she danced secretly to raise money for resistance groups. She once said, "I was born with an enormous need for affection and a terrible need to give it." Audrey didn't dream of fame. She loved ballet, books, gardens, quiet things, but life had other plans. She stepped into the spotlight almost accidentally, and the world never forgot her. From Roman Holiday to Breakfast at Tiffany's to My Fair Lady, she didn't just act. She became elegance itself. Big eyes, soft voice, kindness in everything she did. But what made her truly unforgettable was not Hollywood. It was what she did after. When the cameras faded, Audrey walked away from fame and gave her life to something else: children. She became a UNICEF ambassador. She held starving children in her arms in Ethiopia, in Bangladesh, in Sudan, feeding them, comforting them. When people called her the most beautiful woman in the world, she always said, "The beauty of a woman must be seen from her eyes, because that is the doorway to her heart." If Audrey were still here, she would be 95 years old. But I like to think her spirit would be the same: gentle, brave, softly unstoppable. Maybe she would live quietly in a small house filled with sunlight, flowers, classical music, and the smell of coffee in the morning. Books stacked beside her bed, letters from her sons, handwritten, fresh tulips in a white vase. Maybe she'd still travel, not for movies, but for love, for children who need care. You'd see her visiting refugee camps in Ukraine, Syria, Gaza, kneeling to hold a child's face and whisper, "You are not forgotten. The world still has good in it." She wouldn't care about TikTok filters or trends, but millions would follow her online. Not for fashion, but for the calm in her voice when she'd say things like, "Be kind." It's the only thing that truly matters. Perhaps she'd write a book called The Quiet Life, filled with memories of Gregory Peck laughing on set, of dancing barefoot in Rome at midnight, of choosing kindness in a world that often chooses noise. Audrey Hepburn once said, "For beautiful eyes look for the good in others." And if she were still here, she'd still be looking, still teaching us that softness is not weakness, that elegance is kindness, and that the most extraordinary life is one lived in service of others. She wasn't supposed to be remembered this way. Not as a tragedy, but as a rising star the world never got to fully see. Dominique Dunne was born into Hollywood, but not the glamorous kind people imagine. Her father, Dominique Dunne, was a writer. Her brother, Griffin, became an actor. But Dominique, she was quiet, sensitive, full of heart. She didn't want fame, she wanted meaning. She studied acting in Colorado. She waited tables. She auditioned. She heard no more times than anyone knew. But then she got her chance. The world saw her for the first time. The girl at the dinner table, the older sister, the bright eyes full of life. She was signed to more roles. Directors called her brilliant. Her future was just beginning. But behind the lights was silence. Behind the smile was someone who was hurting, trapped in a toxic, violent relationship no one truly understood. Until it was too late. She was only 22. If Dominique were still alive today, if she were here now, she would be 65. Maybe she'd be standing on a quiet movie set, script in one hand, coffee in the other. Not as an actor, but as a director. Because she didn't just want to be in films. She wanted to tell stories. She would have spoken against abuse. She would have fought for women whose voices are silenced behind closed doors. She might have started a foundation for survivors, using her platform to protect others. You could imagine her, graying hair tied in a loose bun, minimal makeup, wise eyes, sitting in a director's chair that reads D. Dunne. At award shows, young actors would thank her. To Dominique Dunne, who taught us to act with honesty and to live with courage. She would have grown into one of Hollywood's quiet legends, not famous for scandal, but for the truth in her soul. But she's not here, and that hurts. So we keep her alive the only way we can, not by how she died, but by how she lived, and how she should have lived. Some voices don't just sing, they stay. Aaliyah was one of them. She was only 22 when the world lost her, but before that, she was already a legend. Born in Brooklyn, raised in Detroit, she sang in church at 10, signed a record deal at 12, and by 15, her voice was everywhere. Age ain't nothing but a number. 1 in a million. Try again. Her voice was the sound of the late 90s, smooth, effortless, like silk over fire. She wasn't just a singer. She was the future of R&B. She brought softness instead of shouting, confidence without ego. People called her the princess of R&B, but they also called her humble, gentle, kind. She stepped into acting. Romeo must die, queen of the damned. She was doing what very few could do. Singing, acting, dancing, changing music forever. If Aaliyah were still alive today, she would be 45 now, and she would still be graceful, still quiet but powerful. You'd see her at the Grammy Awards, not performing but standing backstage, watching younger artists she inspired walk up to the mic. People like Rihanna, Beyoncé, Ariana Grande, all of them would say, without Aaliyah, there wouldn't be me. Maybe she'd be married. Maybe she'd have children. A small home studio, vinyl records stacked, candles burning, unfinished lyrics on a notebook. She'd still wear that soft smile, head slightly down, eyes looking up. She'd be a fashion icon today. Streetwear one day, silk gowns the next, collabs with Dior, Fenty, Off-White. But she'd stay private, quiet, mysterious, like she always was. And some nights, she'd post an Instagram story of rain on a window, jazz playing softly, and write, "Take care of your heart." Aaliyah once said, "If I don't wake up tomorrow, I've had a great life." She didn't know how much more life she had left to live. So now, we imagine it for her. We don't just remember her voice. We remember the future she never got to sing. Some stories are never finished. Nika's is one of them. Nika McGuigan, daughter of world boxing champion Barry McGuigan, was born in England, raised in Ireland. She didn't choose the ring. She chose the stage, the screen, stories. She trained at the Gaiety School of Acting in Dublin. Her eyes were always alive, full of emotion. You didn't just watch her perform, you felt her. She starred in Wildfire, The Secret Scripture, Philomena. Directors said she had something rare, truth. She could make silence louder than words. But Nika also carried battles inside her, ones nobody could see. At only 33, she left the world quietly. Too soon, too young. If Nika were still here today, she'd be 38, a celebrated Irish actress, an artist with depth, empathy, and fire in her soul. You'd see her at film festivals, Venice, Cannes, Toronto, wearing simple black dresses, no diamonds, just presence. She wouldn't chase fame. She would chase meaning. She'd act in small Irish dramas, in powerful indie films, in roles about real women with real pain. Maybe she'd direct too, stories about grief, sisterhood, and survival. On Instagram, she'd post quiet photos, empty theater seats, rain hitting stone streets in Dublin, a cup of tea and a script next to a window. Caption: stories are how we stay alive. And sometimes she'd smile on camera, soft and shy, like she wasn't meant for noise, but for truth. Her father once said, she lit up every room, and if she were still here, she'd still be doing that, not with brightness, but with sincerity. She was a wildfire, gone too soon, so now we carry the flame for her. Some stars burn quietly. Others, like Brittany Murphy, light up the entire sky. Brittany wasn't born into glamour. She came from New Jersey. Small apartments, big dreams. Her mother, Sharon, told her as a child, if you want something, believe in it more than anyone else. And she did. At 14, she moved to Los Angeles. At 15, first TV role. At 17, Clueless. And suddenly, everyone knew her name. She was different. Not the typical Hollywood beauty, not polished or predictable. She was quirky, emotional, real. She could make you laugh in 1 second and cry in the next. Then came 8 Mile Girl, interrupted, just married. Her voice, soft. Her heart, giant. Her dream, simple, to act, to love, and to make people feel. She would be 47, and she'd probably be exactly who she always was. The kind soul on set, hugging everyone, smiling too big, laughing too loud. But she'd be more than an actress. She would have become a voice actor for animated films, directed indie movies, produced stories for young girls who feel different. She might have married, had children, and filled her home with music and art. Maybe she'd post baking videos online. Maybe she'd write a book. Heart First, A Life in Film. And she would have spoken openly about anxiety, pressure, perfection. She would have told young actors, it's okay to be soft in a hard world. Hollywood would say, Brittany didn't just act in films. She lit them up, but she's gone, and we still feel that light missing. So we honor her, not by mourning, but by imagining, by giving her the future she deserved. Even if only in memory, even if only in pixels, music, and dreams.